everyone, and welcome back to another TikTok video, Fat Talk video, whatever you want to call it. And today we're looking at the tag Fat Oppression, so let's just jump into it.
Okay, let's talk about how body size affects oppression. There are a lot of other factors that affect how fat people experience oppression, but right now we're talking about body size. I will address the other ones in future videos. Fatness exists on a spectrum, and there are people who experience fat oppression who exist across a very wide range of sizes. And the pattern that most people recognize is that as body size increases, so does the frequency and severity of the oppression that person experiences. In social justice spaces, we need to be centering the people who experience the most oppression. And while we don't really have that many people who practice true fat liberation, let's take a look at body positivity. If you know anything about mainstream body positivity, it is that it typically centers thin people or fat people on the smaller side of the fatness spectrum because it's thought that they represent what's considered an acceptable version of fatness. I'm actually a good example of this, and I can explain more in part 2. Okay, let's talk about how...
So we're going to watch part 2, but I do want to, I found, there's something she said specifically that I just found so interesting. In social justice spaces, we need to center the voices that experience the most oppression. That's not you, honey. That's not you. Alright? Just because you're fat doesn't mean that you are one of the most oppressed voices. Alright? You are not a protected class. You are not over 50. You are not black. I don't know your sexuality. So I'm not going to comment on that. Think you're straight, but I could be wrong. So, but you are a cisgendered woman. And yeah, honey, you're not oppressed. And if we took your sizism argument into account, you're not very oppressed, okay? You're not. Being fat isn't a protected or oppressed class. It's just not. Alright? You not being able to find clothes is not being oppressed. The body positivity movement being celebrated with a lot of thinner people is not you being oppressed. You're not oppressed.
Part 2. This component of fat phobia is called sizism, and it effectively means that even in fat-accepting spaces, there is a belief that people in larger bodies are inferior to people in smaller bodies. If you want a comparison, think about the relationship between racism and colorism, which is appropriate because we're about to talk about intersectionality. Colorism theorizes that while all people of color experience racism, the lighter your skin is, or the more white-passing you are, the more privilege you experience. The same thing is true in relation to fat phobia and sizism. People in smaller bodies, even if they are still fat, experience privilege. And I'm a great example of this. I am fat, and I have experienced and I continue to experience fat phobia, but there are a lot of people in bodies far larger than mine who face far worse oppression than I have ever faced. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge all of the ways that we experience privilege so that we can center the people who need these movements most. Part 2.
Okay, I cannot believe that she compared sizism to colorism. I'm familiar with the colorism argument, and I personally think it has quite a bit of merit. And I've seen it acted out some in a couple of different jobs that I've had. Sizism, not the same thing. Not even fucking close to the same thing. Alright? Especially because people aren't very good at judging weight to begin with, but in general, it's not, I don't know people viewing it as, there's just not as many prejudices towards fat people as there is towards black people. That's just a thing. Alright? And, oh my god, I cannot believe that she is comparing and calling it fully appropriate, comparing sizism and colorism. I am baffled. I am fucking baffled that these people think that weight is equivalent to race, gender, sexuality, disability, and age. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah.
Honestly, let's go through each of these.
It's a hard knock life.
What do you mean you're not human? Like, I don't in general see people treating fat people as not human. So, okay.
It's a hard knock life.
No basic respect for you. I've, again, never experienced that. I've worked with plenty of overweight people, and I don't see people being, like, just in your face rude, ignoring their existence, swearing at them. I've never seen that. No proper medical care. And see, this is part of the problem with the fat acceptance movement, is the absolute statements. No proper medical care. I mean, none at all. No one who's fat ever gets proper medical care. Bullshit. Bullshit. Like, I'm not denying that there's cases where doctors make assumptions completely based on weight and ignoring sometimes when a person should be tested for something and they don't do it because they just attribute it to weight. I'm not denying that happens. But to say that happens 100% of the time and that fat people never get help that they need, that just kind of reminds me of one of the videos from a few weeks ago where the woman that was fine with her gyno for 7 years, and then the one time the gyno brings up, losing weight would probably help this particular specific problem, even though I've discussed many other problems with you over the past 7 years and never once commented on your weight, but this one particular issue could probably be helped with your weight, and all of a sudden that doctor is fat phobic and is judging her and what have you. All right? No. Sometimes doctors will tell you to do something that you don't necessarily want to do. I have had many smokers in my family that the doctors are like, I can't help you unless you quit smoking, and they refuse to quit smoking. The doctor can't really do anything for them. I think sometimes that also applies to weight, especially if you're morbidly obese. If you are morbidly obese and your knees hurt, chances are it's your weight and you need to lose weight. Alright? If it seems more internal, then yeah, some tests should be done. But for joint issues and breathing after some things have been ruled out, after some things have been ruled out, like asthma and that sort of thing, doctors can only throw so many medications at you. And then sometimes you have to lose the weight. But breathing can get harder the more weight you have. Blood pressure is more of an issue when you have a higher weight. Diabetes is more of an issue when you have a higher weight. There's medical care. There's proper medical care happening a lot of the time. And you just don't like what you're being told. No protection under the law? No, there is not protection under the law because it is not something that is fundamentally unchangeable in a person. Like, part of the reason for the protections under law is for people that physically cannot change something about themselves. That is why disability is under protection. Race, gender, religion, while it could technically be changed, people that were brought up in a religion or feel very strongly, it's just a fundamental part of who they are. Age is protected. Weight is not, because if you go on a walk and you eat a little less, you'll lose weight. No clothing in regular stores? No! Because typical stores, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, but when it comes to clothing, when it comes to seat sizes, when it comes to anything that is about them fitting in a space, it is done to the norm. It is done on averages, because that is what is most feasible for industries, for any person trying to open up a shop. It's done with the law of averages. Alright? Not every store can carry every size. Not every seat can be wide enough to fit every person. Because there are people other than you. There are people that are very petite. And so sitting in a humongous chair would not work for them. Alright? Stop being... it's just so entitled. No representation? No! Because, fine. You want representation? There's plenty of fat people out there that are artists and writers and what have you. They can write with fat characters. That's totally fine, by all means. But to insist that people insert characters for you because you don't want to lose weight is just stupid.
Let's talk about the components of fatness as a social identity. I get comments all the time basically asking who is fat, what makes somebody fat, which is effectively a way of asking who has claim to that space. And this is not a question that is exclusive to fatness. Other minority groups also have to contend with these sort of who's in, who's out nuances as well.
I hate that she refers to herself, that she refers to it as a minority group. We're not the same as I've said so many times already. It just fucking drives me nuts.
In conversations about race, this question comes up with people who are multiracial and have claims to many different groups, or for people who have light skin and can be white passing. And then in conversations about sexuality, this question comes up for people who can be in straight passing relationships. People want to have these clear lines drawn in the sand so they know who's in and who's out. And while I understand the desire for that, I don't actually think it's helpful or accurate. I think a more helpful conversation is to actually talk about how people's experiences with oppression are different depending on where they fall on the spectrum of body size. And I'm going to make a video about that.
The reason why she wants it that way is so she doesn't have to label herself as lower. Like, they've already made, when it comes to, like, fatness as a social identity, which I think is fucking stupid, but we're going to pretend that it's fine for a moment. And they already have that, like, small fat, mid-fat, something fat, or is it like super fat and infinite fat? Whatever that fucking chart is, they have it. They have it for sizes, so that's already been outlined. So I find it interesting that she's trying to change and pivot elsewhere, when that was like one of the first things that went around this whole fat acceptance space. So what the fuck? And I'm sorry, but fatness as a social identity is fucking stupid, because you can change it and it will change drastically over a lifetime depending on how much exercise you get and what food you eat.
Please put your penis away.
No,
I'm not going to ask you again. Put your penis away.
I am who I am.
What thin body positive influencers must think happens to fat people when we go to the doctor? What seems to be the problem? I have a lump on my chest. Have you tried losing weight? You can't ask me that because I love myself. Oh well, since you love yourself, I'll treat you like a real person with a real health issue instead of blaming everything on your weight. Wow. Thanks, Doc. Thin people aren't so bad after all. All I had to do was love myself. When thin people make body positivity about self-love and beauty standards, it puts fat people at risk. And while many people are now referring to body positivity as fat liberation, that term addresses fat phobia, but not other forms of body oppression.
So I'm curious what she means by other forms of body oppression. But the body positivity movement was always about beauty standards, wasn't it? It was always about loving your body. And no one's saying that... I don't think anyone thinks that a fat person going to the doctor saying, I have a lump on my chest, the doctor says, just lose weight, and they say, well, I love myself, so you should, treat me better. I don't think anyone thinks that that would actually work, and if they do, they're dumb. But let's take that scenario. Okay, let's say you do have a lump on your chest. What kind of lump is it? The doctor should definitely be looking at it. And if they say no, just lose weight, then that is a situation in which you do have to advocate for yourself, saying, you know, I want you to take a look at this, and if you don't, I'm going to file a complaint, or whatever. I'm not entirely sure the best way to, there's ways to look that up on Google on how to advocate for yourself in a doctor's office if you feel they are not taking you seriously. There's, I'm sure if you looked up medical advocacy groups, there's people that can help walk you through the process that have dealt with a variety of discriminations.
Yeah, I get death threats when I post myself online for existing happily in my body.
Whoa, why are you being so aggressive?
What?
Whoa, what's with that attitude?
What? I'm just talking about my own experience on my own channel.
Yeah, but you have this attitude about you, like, whoa.
Are you tone policing me?
No, I'm not tone policing you, but I think that you need to be less aggressive.
You think I need to be less aggressive when I'm talking about my own abuse that I have experienced? You think that I need to be less aggressive when I am talking about getting death threats for existing in my own body?
Yeah, like you're way too aggressive when you're talking about this. Like, whoa, talk about something different.
How am I being aggressive, though? Is it just because I'm not smiling? Like, is this better? I get death threats for existing in my body. Is that better?
Whoa, now you're being sarcastic and aggressive. What's wrong with you? Like, just be quiet already.
So what's your issue exactly? Are you mad that I'm just, like, talking about this and sharing my own experience? Or are you mad that, like, people are listening to me? Or are you mad that I'm just not taking this discrimination and abuse quietly?
Whoa, why are you so aggressive? Like, why are you coming after me?
I'm sharing my own experience on my own channel, and you came to my channel, and you told me to be quiet about it. You told me to stop talking about it. You came to me, and you are silencing me.
I'm not silencing you. I just think you need to shut up.
Are you serious? Do you not see the issue here?
Whoa, why are you so aggressive?
How about we all just, like, you know, stop talking over marginalized voices and stop talking over fat people's voices when they're talking about their own experience on their own channel? And why don't we also stop tone policing people about how they should react to abuse and discrimination and oppression? Like, that'd be just great. And if you've done this before, acknowledge it and then don't do it again. Like, you can learn. So, thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah.
So, here's the thing. One, I don't really have necessarily a problem with the little skit thing that she does, and the fact that she's received any death threats is not okay, and I don't think that should happen even to Marissa, because she's still a person. She's still a person with feelings, and death threats can be fucking scary. That being said, let's not pretend that you are only getting death threats because you exist in your body. Death threats are never okay. But criticism comes your way not because you're just existing in your body.
Hi, I'm going to remind you all today that the body positivity movement is not for white, able-bodied, thin people with insecurities. It is for marginalized and oppressed bodies. Some examples include people of color, disabled people, and you guessed it, fat people. If you do not fall into the category of having a marginalized or oppressed body, odds are you are the beauty standard. You can have insecurities, but you cannot insert yourself into a movement that wasn't made for you. And if this pisses you off, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, body positivity, though, was always marketed as everybody is a good body. Like, that was how when it took off, that's how it started. And I just find it funny because she's like, non-disabled, able-bodied, white bodies, and thin bodies. And she only doesn't really fit into one. She's not thin. She's not like, morbidly obese, though. I mean, she's chubby, but she's not, like, she's thinner than a lot of the fat activists that we see. It's like, you're not oppressed. You're not oppressed, honey. When I see women like her and women like Marissa and women like Hannah Talks Bodies, it's like, clearly you feel the need to feel oppressed and feel special in some way, and so you latch onto this and then attack others so that way you can feel marginalized and oppressed and special. I mean, if you really want body positivity to be about marginalized bodies, then I should see a hell of a lot more promotion of the disabled and bodies of color then. How about that? How about scarred bodies? How about bodies that are missing limbs? How about that? All right? You being fat is not anywhere close to any of those other bodies. All right? Because those bodies can't change what they look like. Scars, while they often fade some, they never fully disappear. Disabled bodies are disabled, and they can't change that. Black bodies, or bodies of color, can't change the skin tone. You can change being fat. So, I'm going to leave it there. Kind of shorter because it was mostly, the further I go on, I mean, it's mostly Marissa and Hannah Talks Bodies. That's mostly what the fat oppression tag is. But she's a new one. I'm going to kind of take a look at her profile, and maybe we'll, if it's worth it, we'll do a TikTok spotlight on Thick Ginger 96. But until then, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.